What does that mean? Absolute value. So you think of the lines like that, okay? So that's how we use it, but what does it mean? What's the definition of absolute value? Say it one more time. It can only be that value, kind of. How far the answer is from 0. It's like a distance, right? Can you have negative distance? Well, we'll argue about that later, but for now, no, right? You can't have negative distance, and so that's what we think of when we think of absolute value. There's other ways to define absolute value, but the way we're going to talk about it is the distance it is from 0. So if you think of it that way, it's got to be a positive value, right? So if I say the absolute value of x equals 5, what do you know about x? X can equal 5. X can also equal -5, right? Because if I take the absolute value of a -5, I get 5, and 5 equals 5, correct? So what if I say, what's the absolute value of 7? Or let me rephrase that. The absolute value of what number equals 7? So x equals 7, but x can also equal -7, right? That should give you a really big hint about some stuff we're going to talk about today. Because I want you to notice that each time we talked about absolute value, how many answers did we get? Each time, right? Each time we got 2 answers. Should we always get 2 answers? There's only one situation where we won't get 2 answers. If x equals what? 0. And really, it still is 2 answers. We just don't have positive and -0, right? It's just 0 and 0. So there's still 2 answers. They just happen to be exactly the same number, right? Okay? So, what happens if I say the absolute value of x plus 6 equals 9? So I never, ever want you to shout out the answer, just for the record. Okay? The answer is almost never the most important thing. It's the process of getting there. Okay? And it's not right. Okay? So, because remember what I said? How many answers should we get? 2, right? So, today is one of those situations that I need you to trust me a little bit. Because of how we're going to write this, how we're going to show our work for this, seems a little bit like too much steps. Except I know where we're going. And in 2 days, this will be very, 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 very important. Today it's mostly just important. Okay? But again, I know where we're going. So if you'll just go with me and trust me for a couple days, then it will make sense in 2 days. Is that okay? So here's what here's what's true. If we look back up at this problem right here, this term right here is allowed to be 5, but this term right here is also allowed to be -5. Does that make sense? So this term right here is allowed to be what? 9 or -9, okay? But it's the thing that's inside that can be a positive 9 or -9. Does that make sense? So it's the thing inside that can be positive or negative. I know it would be just easy to write x plus 6 equals 9 and x plus 6 equals -9. I know that. But that's why I'm asking you to trust me. Because I know where we're going. And this is going to make way more sense in 2 days. So I'm asking you right now, can you just trust me on this? Okay. So whatever's inside the absolute value, we say it's either positive or it's negative. Got it? Well, so I have 2 equations to solve. Does that make sense that we should have 2 equations to solve?
Yes.
Why does it make sense? Because aren't we going to get 2 answers? So shouldn't it make sense that we have 2 equations to solve? Okay? So if we have 2 equations to solve, how do I solve this first part? Subtract 6 from both sides, so x equals 3. Now, do we do anything with that now? No, I just wait. I just leave it there for a second because I've got to solve the other one, right? How do I solve this one? So there's two options, actually. I want to make sure you're aware of both of them. Okay? I can either distribute the negative inside to the parentheses to each term, or I can divide both sides by a -1. Does that make sense? But you said distribute it first, so let's distribute. -1 times x, negative x, -1 times 6. So -6 equals 9. Now how do I solve it? Add 6 to both sides. Negative x equals 15. Have I solved for x? I've only solved for x when it is x equals, right? When it's positive, so I divide both sides by -1 and I get x equals -15. How many answers am I supposed to get?
2.
How many did I get?
2.
So are these right?
Yes.
Are you positive? Is there a way you could be positive?
Plug in the x.
Yeah, you could check them, right? So if x is 3, 3 plus 6, 9. What's the absolute value of 9? 9. Does 9 equal 9?
Yes.
On every world I've ever been to. But just for the record, it's only one. I've only ever been to one world. Okay? I mean, that I know of.
We're glad you're on this one.
Thank you very much. What about -15? What's -15 plus 6? 9. What's the absolute value of -9? Does 9 equal 9?
Yes.
So are you positive that these are the right answers?
Yes.
So we have one more step. We have to graph our answer. Oh yeah, this is super hard. Can you tell I was kidding? Okay. Here's a number line. Where's -15? Down here. Where's 3? Up here. Here's -15. Here's 3. Done. When you do these answers in your online textbook, they give you the number line. You just have to drag the dot to the number. Like, that's even harder, right? Yeah, so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Any questions about this? Let's do another one. Ooh, this one's way harder, isn't it? It looks like it, but you know how to solve equations, don't you? Okay? Guys, why could I, straight from here and straight from here and straight from here, why could I immediately go to the two parts? Why could I do that? The absolute value is isolated. It's all by itself on one side of the equation. Is this absolute value isolated? Then it is our job to get it isolated. Okay? So what I need you to do is pretend like this is an x. The wrong thing that a lot of people try to do first is to distribute the 2. Guys, this is like jail, right? You don't want to get into, well, most of you don't want to get into jail, right? Okay? You want to stay out of jail. You want to get everything away from the jail. You want to help people get out of jail. Legally, you want to help people get out of jail, right? Okay? So, if we treat this like an x, what do I do first? Add 6. If I add 6 to both sides, what am I left with? 2 times the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 18. Everybody okay so far? Now do I distribute the 2 in? You don't want to get into jail, do you? So get everything away from the jail. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that simplifies, doesn't it? So now on the left-hand side, all I have is the absolute value of x plus 4 equals what? 9. Now is the absolute value isolated?
Yes.
Once the absolute value is isolated, what do I do?
Do your equations.
Two parts, right? Two parts. So first of all, I have whatever's inside the absolute value when it's positive. And then I have whatever's inside the absolute value being negative. So to solve the left-hand side of the equation, someone who hasn't spoken yet, what do you do first? Subtract 4 from both sides. If I subtract 4 from both sides, I get x equals 5. Now, on this one, do you guys mind? We distributed it last time, right? And I told you there was two ways to do it. Do you mind if we divide both sides by -1 this time so you can see what happens? Is that all right? So if I divide both sides by -1 this time, do you see how the -1 and the -1 simplify to 1? And so I just have x plus 4 equals -9. Now, are these parentheses necessary right here? Not anymore, right? They're not necessary. I probably shouldn't have written them, but I just accidentally did. Sorry. Okay? I can't erase mine, but you can erase yours if you wrote them. What do I have to do to this left side to solve for x? If I subtract 4 from both sides, x equals -13. Are those right answers?
Yes.
Be positive. 5 plus 4. 9. What's the absolute value of 9? What's 9 times 2? What's 18 minus 6? Does 12 equal 12? Okay, so I know for sure that one's right. What about -13? What's -13 plus 4? -9. What's the absolute value of -9? So what's 9 times 2? 18 minus 6? Does 12 equal 12? Then this is also correct. So what does my number line look like for my answer? -13 on the left side, +5 on the right side, and what goes on each number? A dot. Can I try to trick you? I'm going to try. You're going to go into it knowing you're being tricked. Okay? Don't let yourself get tricked. Here we go. Absolute value of 2x plus 5, then plus 6 equals 5. So what do we need to do first? So isolate the absolute value. How are we going to isolate the absolute value in this case? Get rid of the 6, so subtract 6 from both sides. You're okay. So I have absolute value of 2x plus 5 equals -1. The absolute value is isolated, so now what? Two parts, okay? Two parts. So 2x plus 5 equals -1. So that's what's, if the absolute value, what's inside the absolute value is just what it is, right? The positive value. And then negative 2x plus 5 equals -1. You okay so far? Okay, let's solve the left equation. How do I do that? Subtract 5 from both sides. 2x equals -6. If I divide both sides by 2, x equals -3. How do I solve the right-hand side? Which way you want to do it? Divide by negative. Okay, we can do that. Divide by -1 on both sides. 2x plus 5 equals 1. Subtract 5 on both sides. 2x equals -4. Dividing both sides by 2 gives me x equals -2. Are we okay so far? Are these right? We should check them, right? Negative 3. 2 times negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 plus 5. Negative 1. What's the absolute value of negative 1? 1 plus 6. Uh-oh. Well, maybe it's the other one then, right? 2 times negative 2. Negative 4 plus 5. 1. What's the absolute value of 1? 1 plus 6. Well, we messed up right here. First of all, we didn't do anything wrong, did we, down here? Where we messed up is right here. We let ourselves get tricked. When will you ever take the absolute value of anything and get an answer that's negative? Never. From here, all of this work was completely unnecessary. From here, you can write no solution. Because there will never be a time that I take the absolute value of something and it gives me an answer that is a negative number. But in order to know that it's no solution, you have to have your absolute value isolated. Okay? Because if right here, if this said negative 12, we can't just automatically assume it's no solution, right? Because I got to get rid of this number and I got to get rid of this number because maybe by moving these things over here, that makes this a positive number again, right? Now, in this case, it wouldn't, but you see what I might be saying? Maybe if this is a negative 2, it sure would, wouldn't it? Okay? So once you have your absolute value isolated, look at this number before you do your two parts. If this number is negative and you have your absolute value isolated, there is no solution. Are you ready to see how you graph no solution? Okay, done. There's no dots that we can put on the number line for no solution, is there? Okay. Do you have any questions? Okay, can I remind you of something really quick before you go on? What if you have a problem that looks like this? How do you solve that? Do we ever divide by fractions? We do not. We multiply by, it's reciprocal, right? Multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So then this simplifies to 1, that simplifies to 1, and on this side I just have x. On this side, multiplying fractions, I multiply straight across. So I would get 27 over 2. And I could simplify that if I could, but I cannot in this particular case. There is a problem that shows up on your homework like this where you're going to have to deal with a fraction as a multiplier. God bless you. And I wanted to remind you how to get rid of that multiplier. Is that okay? All right. Any more questions?